How's it, guys? Craig back again with some exciting news. The Evo 9 build, we've got it all buttoned up. The swap kit is now complete and ready for sale, for production. Let me explain what the components are. So we start off on the front. Engine mount, or let's call it the engine bay mounting kit. So we got here the left mount with its hardware. We got the rear mount with its hardware. We've got the front mount, which basically reuse the same OEM hardware. And then we got these inserts. So these are nice stiff poly inserts, which I'll supply with the mounting kit. You basically press out your original rubbers, and then you press in the new poly rubbers, which is obviously much sturdier. And the main one of the reasons why we want to actually change these over is because the new left mount has now got this poly sleeve in there, and which means that the left mount is gonna be stiffer than the rest of the engine mounts, the OEM mounts. So that's why I decided I'm gonna add the poly mount inserts for the other three OEM mounts. So you basically reuse the original brackets, and you take it to a engineer and just have them press out the old ones and press in the new ones, and that's going to give all your mountings the same stiffness, and your engine will actually then rotate evenly. Because if you don't insert these, you're going to find, because your left mount's going to be stiffer, your motor's going to rotate unevenly as a torque applied. So those are the mounts, and then the original cross member or subframe under the original engine and gearbox. That's no longer gonna work. So we had to redesign a new one. Just as strong, if not stronger, and that's now going to be used. It's pretty stiff. I think it's probably stronger than the original one. And you've got your toe hook back on there as well, so everything will fit and work nicely. All right, so those are the components for the front mounting kit. Let me just show you with it assembled. So on the right front mount, if you choose, I'm going to supply the poly inserts, but if you choose not to press in the inserts, then what you're going to have to do is I'll give you this 8mm spacer, which you're going to have to stick in between the mounting bracket and the casting on the engine, because the original center bush is 8mm lower, and my poly insert is now dead center, which means when you're using the OEM rubber, you need to raise, you need to lower the engine by 8mm. And that's what the space is for. But that's only if you choose not to push in the poly insert, which is pretty dumb if you're not going to, because it's going to come with a mounting kit in any case. Okay, so that's the right front mounting. Nothing else changed on this side. On the chassis, nothing's changed there. That all stays the same. Then we move to the front mount. Okay, so there you've got the front mount bolted in. So 2 bolts on this side, and then there's one There's one underneath there. So the mounting bracket goes in. You reuse the original rubber bracket, pump out the rubber sleeve, and you pump in my poly sleeve. All the same hardware gets used again, and then that's the subframe basically sitting more or less in position with all the clearance underneath there. That's the subframe sitting in position there now. That's the front mounting. Then we've got the left front mounting. So you've got a situation of 3 layers here. So you're going to first bolt the first layer on. That poly block will come pre-assembled to the second layer. So you basically got to bolt the first layer down and then bolt this layer down onto there, and then this is just to show you how the bracket looks when it's attached here. But obviously this part gets fixed to the sachet. So that's what it looks like from the side. And let's just have a look in the sachet itself. Okay, so that's the mounting bracket fixed to the sachet rail now. So what you got to do first is these original, you got to cut off these original brackets, which was affixed to the sachet leg. There was one on either side here. You got to cut that off as flush as possible with that sachet leg. You don't have to take the flat part off, only the 2 protrusions, but get it as flat as possible. Just clean up the surfaces nice and flat, and then you'll get this bracket fitting on there perfectly. Comes with all its hardware. You can bolt up the back first there, and then you got a choice. You can either, once you've got that bolted down, you will then have access to these holes in its proper position. Then you can drill and tap some threads in the sachet leg and turn these bolts in. That's the one option. Second option is to drill a hole, maybe like a 2-inch hole here, and get your fingers in there to stick a nut behind these bolts, just to give it more strength. The third option is obviously just to clean up the point and run a MIG welder in the hole, on each hole, and then that will basically secure it more permanently. But honestly, just tapping the threads in there, I think it's pretty fine, unless you want to just put some nuts behind, in which case you got to just open up a little hole over there. While we're at this point here, I just want to show you that the gearbox didn't quite clear the sachet leg here. So the sachet leg does require some nip and tuck. You will notice there's a little pocket there, a little pocket here, and that little pocket there. Now I am supplying, with a mounting kit, I am supplying a template to show you, basically to plot those points, those 3 pockets, mark it, and I'll actually show you the depth of the pocket as well. Now, just to note that none of these 3 pockets actually get cut so far back that it hits the seam, the factory seam. So your strength is absolutely still there. In fact, by reinforcing these pockets with some 3mm steel, you're actually making the leg much stronger by introducing these pockets, and obviously you got to weld it properly. And so there's no impact on the strength of the sachet at all. But that is an absolute must. There is just no other way to get this gearbox to clear that leg there. So back to that mount. Okay, so we've sorted that one out. Then we got the rear mount. So the rear mount is attached to the upper transfer case bolt, lower transfer case bolt, and then there's two bolts on the gearbox casing, one there and one inside there. That secures the bracket, and then again you then reuse the original OEM rubber bracket, in which case you again push the rubber out and you push the poly insert in there. That will give you the same poly strength, same vibration strength as all the other mounts. While we are in here at the back, you should probably note that this intake support bracket just needed to be notched out around my transfer case bracket, but you still score the one mounting bolt there, which will then still hold the bracket in position. So that's a bonus. You still get to use that original bracket there. And then let me just show you from the bottom what that subframe looks like. So that's the subframe more or less in position. You'll notice that this bracket actually wraps around the bottom and gets secured under the gearbox as well. That's just for extra strength, so that some of the force applied to the bracket is not on the transfer bolts alone, but it's also on a very, very strong casting at the bottom there. So any twisting force on this bracket is shared on that lower bolt there as well. And then that's the mountings done. And then I should probably also just note that the original knock sensor used to sit down there. You now just got to move it up to the next hole, which is probably about 1.5 inches higher, but you're still on the side of the cylinder wall, so you're still going to get the proper knock sensitivity. So yeah, knock sensor just moves slightly up to accommodate the CV cup, which is just a tad closer to the block. You can leave the knock sensor down there, but the wire, because the wires are they stand proud off the sensor, it's probably best to move it up a little bit. Okay, so that's the mounting kit. While we're here, I might as well just tell you that the front prop shaft is going to be supplied with this similar adapter to that. So that adapter will basically go from the tripod flange onto a 4-bolt universal joint, and all joints on the new prop shaft will be 1350, which is very strong. So yeah, that will be there'll be a front prop shaft adapter, and I think that's basically all on the front of the car. Maybe before I finish in front here, I can just also tell you that this DSG shifting cable, this was come from the donor car, which is the Audi S3 8P model. So that's where we got the cable from. And I found that the cable was exactly 200 millimeters too short, so you got to get the cable to more or less to that position over there, and then also the S3's end link and mid link. Those are not the same as a DQ500, so you got to make sure your gearbox comes with these. Normally they just the breakers just cut them off here and leave this part on the gearbox. So we were fortunate to get our gearbox with these on it. If you don't get your gearbox with this, then yeah, good luck trying to find a DQ500 these fittings. So yeah, that's the DSG cable. what else was there? And then your brake fluid reservoir, which used to run down to the clutch master. You can leave that on there and just blank off, pull the pipe out and then put a blank off on there. That will stop the fluid from leaking out there. And while we're in the engine bay, there was something else. Oh yeah, and then because we're running drive-by wire, you got to pull your, this is a Bosch drive-by wire we're using, so you got to pull your drive-by wire harness through, and then you've got to also pull your DSG harness through as well. Those are the only two harnesses that needs to go through the firewall. Probably best to do all this before the engine goes in. That's basically that's basically the engine bay. So next up we'll go to the rear of the car, but that's basically the front mounting kit done.